I started by visiting Quality Learning Center Daycare,
So it is that 14B.
which sits right in the heart of downtown Minneapolis. Between 2019 and 2023, the Minnesota Department of Human Services found 95 violations at this location. They range from failure to keep hazardous items away from children to no records for 16 children, which include things like immunizations, emergency contacts, and medical needs. So state investigators placed Quality Learning Center on a conditional license in 2022. I went to the daycare's location several times, and only once did I see people there.
Oh, that's your daycare.
But I did not see any
So
children.
there are 80 kids in there?
No.
After school? Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you.
DHS declined an interview, but in a statement acknowledged Quality Learning Center was put on a conditional license because of its poor safety record. But it still received nearly $8 million in taxpayers' money since 2019. Its conditional status removed in 2024.
Area. Don't come this area.
What's your response to the allegations? Is there fraud going on here? No, it's a video. I just want to know. What's your response?
What's the problem?
Huh?
Get the out of here.
What's your response to the allegations? Is there fraud going on here? And is there children? That's all.
Don't harass me. Don't harass me for the here.
All right, family. Boom. Let's get right into it. Y'all already know when I come on camera like this, I got something serious to say. And today I'm telling you right now, what I'm about to break down is probably one of the most disrespectful, insane, and flat out criminal stories I've ever seen. And I'm going to keep covering it. And guess what? It's real, and it's getting realer and realer day by day. And it's happening in America, obviously, which is unfortunate. And it's happening with your tax dollars, and nobody in power is doing a damn thing about it. So you ever wake up, right? And you go to work, grind all day, pay your bills, pay your taxes, and think to yourself, where the hell's my bread going? And you ever feel like your whole check disappears before you even touch it? And while you out here sacrificing, your money is being funneled into one of the most nastiest, most organized fraud schemes I have ever heard about in the 26 years of my life, right here in the United States. And we talking over $9 billion now, right? And yes, that's been siphoned, scammed, and possibly laundered right out of the government programs designed for helping working families, and instead ended up in the hands of fake businesses, fake child care centers, and even allegedly foreign terrorists. Yeah, I said it. The rabbit hole goes that deep. And you know what's worse? This ain't new. This didn't start last year. This been going on for over a decade. And the politicians, the media, and the people in power, they knew and they did nothing. But I don't want you guys to take my word for it. I want you guys to check out the next clip.
No. We just provided the luncheon. This is the location. This is where everybody comes.
Okay. Are there any subcontractors or anything you guys deal with? Say like other businesses that you partner with that you use for a service of any kind, maybe transportation or anything like that? No.
We provide usually parents, and they come like this, drop the kids, they go to us, and then we take care of them.
Awesome. And who actually oversees the receipt of those documents at I-9?
Usually like.
All right, family. So you see the Department of Homeland Security, which we know that department is headed by Secretary Kristi Noem, and she said more is coming, and they're basically investigating, and they're on the ground in Minneapolis, investigating the child care center and the rampant fraud, right? And as we dive more into it, and you guys will learn, and brace yourself because you're going to get angry as I continue to dive into this thing. I want to set the context, right? Because I like to break it all down from a childlike perspective or a C student perspective. And when you really look at this thing, you got folks, right, who don't follow politics. And I got you. I'm going to break it all the way down. in plain English. This is bigger than the left versus right, okay? Democrats versus Republicans. Bigger than race, bigger than immigration. This is about corruption. This is about theft. This is about the system protecting the wrong people again. I'm going to say that again loud for the people in the back. Again. So here's the meat of the story, right? In Minneapolis, Minnesota, you got a whole wave of daycare centers, mostly run by members of Somali immigrant community that have been under investigation for what is potentially the biggest welfare fraud scam in state history, maybe even national history. And these so-called daycares were billing the government for watching kids that don't exist, collecting millions in public money. And then this is where it gets really nasty, because allegedly sending large amounts of money, of that money, I should say, overseas, taxpayer money, not for the business, not for family support, but allegedly to fund criminal organizations and terrorist linked groups in other countries. Now, pause. Let's not even go there yet, because let me explain how the actual scam works. Because a lot of people are like, wait, how do you scam a daycare? What does that even mean? Well, let's say I open up a daycare. I apply for government funding. Boom. Which is totally legal. If I qualify, I could get paid by the state to provide childcare for low-income families. There also are programs where you can apply to get a childcare voucher, right? The family goes and apply for the childcare voucher. They're a low-income family. They may get a card. You know, from my experience, when my little guy was little, or smaller, so to say, I was on it. But I done it for the right reasons. I actually needed it. I work, low income guy, doing what I need to do to make sure that I can go work. And that's really what childcare is and daycare is for your child to have oversight and supervised by an adult. Hopefully you trust and vetted out the daycare, obviously, because you work. You got to pay bills, and you can't take your kid to work, obviously. So I applied for the childcare voucher. Based on my income, they vet it out. Now, there is some qualifications from my experience. You have to be working at least over 20 hours. And, there's a second bullet point where you have to be, going to school or doing something with yourself, right? So you have to check off one of the boxes, right? So to say. And you get a card, or you get the form for the daycare, the social service department that handles the child care voucher. They will fill it out. You take it back to the daycare, or they will send it or fax it over to the daycare. And it's all federal money, taxpayer money, right? And that's how the system is set up. And then the daycare, they can get government funding and apply for that. But here's where the scam starts. I start submitting paperwork, right, in my daycare, right, to my example, saying I'm watching 50 kids a day when really ain't nobody there. Maybe a couple kids pop up for a photo, but the whole thing is a front. Then I call up some of the parents in the community, real or fake. I'm going to say that again, real or fake, and say, hey, let me use your child's name to build a government. It's sort of that thing where, have you ever heard of those things where, you've been in public school and they count the kids, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they write off how many kids are there to make sure they have an adequate amount of lunches based on your state program. If they, supply lunches for school lunch, and they basically miscalculate and put extra kids so the other kids can have extra food and things like that. And it reminds me of that because I have seen that before. But basically what I'm saying is, if I call up a person in my daycare and say, a parent, and I say, hey, let me lose your child's name to build the government, I'll cut you a check from the money I get. That's a kickback, right? Everybody eats, the scammer gets paid, the fake parent gets a piece, and the government is left with empty records. Now, multiply that by dozens, maybe hundreds of daycares, all connected, all billing for fake services, all cashing in on the same weak ass oversight program, right? And here's the cool part. They've been doing this since at least 2015. But I want you guys to not take my word for that. Check out this clip.
YouTuber Nick Shirley visiting Somali-run daycares in Minnesota that receive millions in taxpayer money and showing a lack of kids present. Well, I have a strange twist for you. The daycare that's getting the most attention from Shirley's video is the Quality Learning Center, misspelled as Quality Luring Center. While answering questions today, the state commissioner in charge of licensing daycares claimed that the Quality Learning Center permanently closed 1 week ago, which would have been before Shirley filmed his video. Listen.
I will share that our team was notified that Quality Learning Center closed just over a week ago. And I believe the details that were given at that time were around space concerns. And that's what was shared.
But after that press conference, we went back to the Quality Learning Center and vans were dropping off dozens of children.
Make this stuff
Parents and a manager told us the daycare is.
Well, clearly, family, there's some miscommunication there, or they basically saying, look, we've been taking money and we don't give a fuck. We're going to keep taking money, right? My man right here with his eyes closed, as you see with the little afro, look like he high as a kite. He's like, look, man, he's the manager. He's like, hey, well, we're open. We don't know what they're talking about. So clearly the state obviously ain't doing no oversight because the fraud daycare or fraud center is still operating, regardless of you saying it's shut down. So who really is in control? Who really has the say-sos, right? And on top of that, would the daycare even be opened still if they weren't exposed? And they never was supposedly, allegedly shut down? Doesn't look like shut down to me.
Is open and is legitimate. We saw state inspectors leaving, and we hope to find out by the end of the week if they made any new findings. I'm Lou Goose. Follow for more.
That is so weird. I don't understand. This how you know that obviously the state doesn't care. They just throw away taxpayer money. Like it's the lottery. Oh, here, you can take it, you can take it. Oh, you have daycare center, you sign up, you get a daycare, you get money. Or you're a daycare, you get money. Like, what the hell is this? So anyway, remember, I said this been going on since at least 2015. There's video proof, news reports, investigations, whistleblowers, government hearings, and nothing changed. And that right there is the part that should piss you off the most. The system knew and they let it ride. And it let $9 billion of your money disappear. Check this out.
New information tonight concerning a Fox 9 investigation. We reported that millions of dollars in public subsidies to help low-income families with child care were being stolen.
And it's believed by sources with direct knowledge of the fraud that some of the money could be ending up with terror organizations. Jeff Ballion joining us now with more on his investigation. Jeff?
That's right. Tonight you're going to hear from a government whistleblower who tried sounding the alarm about this massive fraud well over a year ago. He's speaking out because he believes he has a moral obligation to do so and because he feels lives are on the line. Emails obtained by the Fox 9 investigators show the Department of Human Services was warned that it had a massive daycare fraud problem on its hands, that millions of stolen tax dollars were going overseas, and it was likely some of the money was being skimmed by terrorism organizations.
I've never seen anything of this level or scope in my 27-year career as an investigator.
Scott Stillman spent 8 years managing the state's digital forensics lab. That means he mined data from computers and smartphones. When the state started going after daycare centers suspected of fraud, Stillman was directly involved in the investigations. He was so alarmed by what he was finding that in March of 2017, he fired off a series of emails to his supervisors at the Department of Human Services.
We are working on and currently overwhelmed with significant fraud cases involving organized crime, defrauding hundreds of millions of dollars annually in taxpayer monies.
Here, Stillman is reading from one of the emails he wrote, which the Fox 9 investigators obtained through a public records request. DHS took 2 months before it turned over the emails, and much of what it provided to us was redacted.
They were not easy to write, but I felt I had an obligation because I think that there is a strong possibility this money is being used against innocent civilians and against our military.
Stillman says he alerted a number of people in DHS, including the commissioner's chief of staff, with this message.
Significant amounts of these defrauded dollars are being sent overseas to countries and organizations connected to entities known to fund terrorism.
Was the warning ever passed along to Governor Dayton?
I was not informed.
He says no, but other sources tell us people within the governor's office were told about these concerns a couple of years ago.
My chief of staff currently and previous chief of staff, from what I'm told, did not get any information alleging that there was that kind of volume of theft.
The state currently has 10 daycare centers under investigation for fraudulent billing of child care services.
And we'll get to that video in a minute. But family, I just wanted to pause for a second and I want to ask you this. And if you got this far in the video, give this video a big thumbs up, like it up, please, and subscribe to the family if you're new. And also, I appreciate you for rocking with me if you watched this far. Why did the government ignore this for nearly a decade? My take is because the people doing it from a group the media and politicians are scared to criticize. That's it. That's the reason to me, right? And also, why would you say anything if you're obviously benefiting, right? Nobody wants to touch it, even when the fraud is blatant. This is documented and this is disgusting, right? But it's hard for the Democrats to call out a certain group because they're always running their divisive rhetoric mouths of, oh, you're attacking Somalians. Oh, the white man is the enemy. Oh, especially a black Democrat. Oh, they're coming at me because I'm black. Oh, why are they doing this to me? So now they can't even pull back the simple fact of their wrongs when it comes to any minority groups, even if fraud is involved. And they too far deep in it, number one. Number two, they get money, so they're not going to say none because they benefit. And number three, it would be very hypocritical if they even held themselves accountable, which we know they're not. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota is not going to resign. He's not going to step down. And to mention, he's running up for re-election. So when you think of all this, they can't sit there and really pull back the curtain of their own mess and try to even take more accountability. Do I think the Democrats are gone? No, but they're going to continue to lie through their teeth. I know that for a fact. But I'm saying is, it will be hard for them to call out their own mess because they obviously are their own worst enemy in all of this mess, and let alone a disgrace to America and American taxpaying citizens. But let's continue.
Each of the suspect centers has received several $1 million in government subsidies. According to public records and government sources, most are owned by Somali immigrants. We asked the Department of Human Services about the emails Scott Stillman sent in 2017. Who in the chain of command was aware of them and when? It responded with a statement. The Deputy Commissioner, Communications and Legal Staff learned there may be emails on this subject when Fox 9 made its data request in March. The then Chief Compliance Officer was informed at the time the emails were originally sent.
I would like to have an independent federal investigation of the handling of DHS programs, specifically a daycare program and the Medicaid fraud program, by preferably Homeland Security or the Department of Justice.
Scott Stillman.
And also, I say also why the government was ignoring this under Democrat leadership, under the Biden administration. Because remember, I said this has been going on for at least 2015. But don't take my word for it because I have another news clip in regards to video proof and news reports. But my point is, they won't criticize this group. In this case, for Governor Tim Walz, he won't criticize the Somalian group or hold them accountable. So he's going to blame the white man. He's going to deflect like he's been doing and blaming the white man. This is his words. Because obviously Somalians make up the majority of Minneapolis for him to get reelected as he's running for reelection, right? So they can't criticize the group either for the simple fact because they'll be called out for their own mess and how they indoctrinate people, how they influence the far left lunatics, insane individuals with ideologies they like to push with propaganda from their mainstream media outlets like a CNN, ABC, MSNBC, well, now known as MS Now, formerly known as MSNBC. But you get where I'm going with this, right? But now I want to show you guys, right? Because if this fraud was run by a group of white conservatives wearing "Make America Great Again" hats that Tim Walz is trying to deflect and basically blame that the white man is scary, the white man is the enemy. Several statements concerning white people and white supremacy, and primarily in response to rhetoric that is factual, that is truthful, that keep coming out day by day on a daily basis from Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And shout out to Doge. They need to bring Doge back with Elon Musk, the Department of Government Efficiency, to continue to get rid of this fraud, waste, and abuse, right? We had millions of people on Social Security that was dead. You know what I'm saying? So much money being siphoned out in the name of fraud at the cost of a taxpayer. And then I feel like taxes is just theft alone. But to continue to siphon money is only going to make taxes higher. But this is the party of affordability, right? Democratic Party. Oh, blame the rich people, blame the white man. Oh, they're trying to not, they are the ones that's the enemy, and they're attacking your affordability, which is all false. It's all just dumb ideology, which has nothing to do with simple economics. It has nothing to do with obviously the benefit or the best interest of Americans, let alone constituents. In this case, when it comes to Minnesotans and Minneapolians that are basically being governed by the leader of Governor Tampon Timmy Watts, right? So I'm saying all that because if this fraud was run by a group of white men or white conservatives wearing MAGA hats, do you think the response would be this soft? Going with what Governor Tim Walz ignorantly said by deflecting and not taking accountability of leadership and getting down to this thing, but he's obviously enabling the Somalians to keep going and obviously see nothing within this fraud, as he continues to say it's important, but it's the difference of saying that it's important that they should be convicted in the further state of the law versus actually doing something under your watch. And it's been going on for years, even during the Biden administration and Democratic leadership and Democrat presidency. So no, not even close. If it came to white conservatives wearing mega hats running fraud, they'll be on CNN every hour. You'll see FBI agents rappelling down the side of the buildings. They'll be in handcuffs before the sun came up. They'll be in a Netflix documentary about it. But because this happened in a Democrat-run city in a Somali immigrant community, everybody's tiptoeing like they're walking on eggshells. But I want you guys to see the second news clip, and I want you guys to check it out, the facts. Check it out.
Well, state and federal agents raided a daycare center in South Minneapolis earlier today, part of an ongoing effort to crack down on a massive fraud problem.
Fox 9 investigator Jeff Ballion's been tracking the issue for months, and he has the latest.
Parents dropping off their kids at the Baraka Child Care Center were greeted by some unfamiliar faces. Fraud investigators from the Minnesota Department of Human Services. One mother told us they were asking if anyone knew of anything shady happening at the center. Agents from the State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the Secret Service also took part in this raid. Armed with a search warrant, they confiscated cell phones, computers, and documents as part of what's being called an ongoing investigation of child care funding fraud. The state currently has 10 centers under investigation, suspected of stealing millions in public subsidies meant for low-income families to pay their child care. Multiple government sources tell the Fox 9 investigators the problem is rampant and may be costing Minnesota taxpayers as much as $100 million a year.
It's just widespread, and it's national, and it's multi-state.
The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is also cracking down on the problem. It reports that nationally in 2015, more than $300 million in improper payments went to daycare providers. Typically, the way this scam works is the fraudsters overbill the government by inflating attendance records.
Due to the sheer volume, whether you add 3 children onto a sign-in sheet and you're one of 80,000 providers, that the chances of someone proactively identifying you as a fraudster are probably small.
A check of state enforcement records shows the Minneapolis center targeted in this latest raid was cited last month for lacking documentation that one of its teachers was qualified for the job. And last year, the center was ordered to pay a fine for not doing background checks on some employees.
That's crazy. And the third clip at the beginning of this video with the leering daycare center, can't even spell learning right, is mind blowing to me because when Department of Homeland Security start touching the ground now and showing up for investigations, as you guys can see, all of a sudden vans want to start pulling up to the daycare full of kids. Full of kids. But ask the people who live next door. They'll tell you, we ain't never seen those fans before. So now y'all just busting in kids last minute to fake legitimacy. So y'all just trying to save face now. That's why I believe that Donald Trump and Christy Noem, they're being too soft. They should have been there right then and there. They should have been there before Nick Shirley. They should have been doing what Nick Shirley did right away, right? But that's how desperate these daycare centers gotten. These Somalians, Governor Tampon Timmy, they scrambling and scraping. They peeing in their pants, man. And I'm not even exaggerating. That's how scared they are that the truth is coming out, right? But here's another one for you, right? Because why didn't the governors of Minnesota, Dayton or Tim Walz shut down this years ago? Because in my opinion, they looked the other way on purpose, getting something out of it. Like I said, votes, campaign donations, or just silence to avoid controversy, because reputation is everything. And you obviously know when reputation gets tarnished or gets destroyed, you lose resources. They let it go. They let your money get burnt so they could keep their image clean. And that's political corruption, plain and simple. And politicians don't get rich by running or being in office. They get rich and wealthy based on the things they do outside of the office, right? In this case, these kickbacks, right? That's how they get wealth, right? By running these Ponzi schemes off the back of affordability, while they only seek self-enrichment but sell you ideology like if they're there to help you. But the only time they actually give a solution temporarily, which is very, 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 very short term, is when they want to get reelected. So they throw you a bone. Like a dog. What do you do when the dog is wagging their tongue? You know, oh, you want a bone, doggy? Here you go. Here you go. Now hush it up. That's how these Democrats treat the American people. They don't actually care about you. They care about themselves. Once they get in that office, you see their true colors every single time. The mask comes off. Right? And look, don't come in my comments saying, well, some people got arrested. Yeah, a few did. But this has been running for 10 straight years. That's not a few bad apples. That's the whole damn orchard. That means the prosecutions were just damage control, not justice. They sacrificed a few to keep the machine running. Right? And now, right, I want to show you guys this. Right? Because obviously this is from 2018, Minnesota criminal prosecution against Somali daycare fraudsters. Right? In this surveillance video, Somali parents would take their kids to the daycare, check them in, and then leave with them moments later. I seen a situation like this. I'm going to give you an example. And I had to really disassociate myself with this individual. Because I don't condone no fraud. No nonsense like this whatsoever. Honest, earnest living always. So it's no different between a home health aide, right? They work on a company, they get sent to an elderly person or someone who needs home health aid services that are in need for assisted living or some aid in just doing their everyday essential daily routines like life skills. But obviously it's not dire or extreme to the point where they have to be in a home, right? They have to be in a assisted living home or a nursing home, but they can still do decent independent things, but they may need help washing themselves, home health aid duties, wiping themselves, right? Or someone who may have had a stroke and they lost a certain control in their body and they go into therapy services and get in the van to come out to transport them, but they just need help just a little bit of help throughout the days, as you know, strokes can go in different forms. You may lose a certain ability in your body or half your face ability, things like that. But what I'm saying is, there's no difference from someone who's in a Ponzi scheme of a home health aid company going to a patient house and giving home health care services, but instead they're giving them a cut of the money to say, hey, just if my supervisor come or call or ask how the services are going, just say I'll be here. But really they don't be there. They be out doing everything else on the clock and not even with the patient, and then splitting checks because they're giving the patient money to be quiet so they don't get reported to the home health agency they work for to come out and actually do their job, right? But I want you guys to see.
Order for the scheme to work, the daycare centers need to sign up low-income families that qualify for child care assistance funding. These surveillance videos are from a case prosecuted by Hennepin County. They show parents checking their kids into a center only to leave with them a few minutes later. Sometimes no children would show up. But either way, the center would bill the state for a full day of child care. This video from that same case shows a man handing out envelopes of what are believed to be kickback payments to parents who are in on the fraud.
Where was the money going?
I don't know exactly where it went, but it...
Order for the...
And there you have it, folks. And they're going to give it in cash because you can't trace it, right? But obviously, if they deposit in their accounts, which is why Secretary Scott Bessent said they found out more of this fraud through the IRS, because you're going to have monies they deposit. If they deposit in their account, obviously it's through the banking system, and now they can see in their banks, how did you get this money? And you have to ask, how did you form this way of income, right? So there you have it. But what I'm going to say is, let's bring this home. This isn't just Minneapolis. Do you think this is the only happening in one state? Hell no. And I promise you there are similar fraud operations in cities all across the country. Anywhere there's free government money and no oversight. And you're going to find scammers. And if this is working this well in Minnesota, best believe folks in other states are copying the playbook. Now, this part going to sting for the lefties watching. You still want universal daycare? You still want that socialist agenda? Be honest, because you want the government to roll this out nationwide, expand this broken system to all 50 states when we can't even protect one city from a decade-long scam. And this is exactly what happens when you create a system with no accountability. It becomes a buffet for criminals. They line up with plates and forks and eat off your back. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I love you guys and I appreciate you. Catch you in the next one. Peace.